second. Have it right. Tov Tov Peches. Zman Tkiya Shofar. Somebody asked me a question which is relevant to what we're going to learn today. I think the last week in the share, maybe with someone else, but we're going to. Zman Tkiya Shofar Bayom V'lo B'layla. The Tkiya Shofar is done in the day and not at night. U'mitzvasa v'ishas neitzach hama be'eleh. From sunrise. Just like
did we skip a few on purpose?
Yeah, we skipped those on purpose. Yeah, those are about the anybody over here buying a shofar or something like that. Or have to. I skipped them.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. Okay. So if your son blew from after Aloisa, then it's okay because the point is the Mishnah in Megillah tells us that Alois is the day. That's no problem. But the problem is that people are not sure if it's before Alois or after Alois, so therefore we use sunrise as the Lechatchila day point. But theoretically, it's day from Alois to Shachar. I would just mention that when Alois to Shachar is not so clear. When I grew up in America, so there was only one Alois to Shachar. Came to Eretz Yisrael and I found out that there's more than one Alois to Shachar. And we're going to see a Bir Halacha over here that tells us there's more than one Alois Shachar. Another Nekuda, which I just mentioned over here, because the Bir Halacha mentions it here, there is a difference between the scientific Zricha and Shkia and the halachic Zricha and Shkia. The scientific one, and this is done for obvious reason, is when the middle of the ball of the sun goes over the horizon or under the horizon. And we understand that. That's, that makes perfect sense. Now, halachic, shkia and zricha is when there's a tip of the ball above the horizon. And that also makes perfect sense. But it's not the same thing. And actually, depending on where you live and also on what time of year, there could be a discrepancy that's different. So, no, it's Halacha l'maisa, a person has no right to go and rely on what it says in a secular source because they're not recording the same thing. No, there's an argument. They're not recording the same thing. We need just a piece of the ball, and they need at the middle of the ball. Normally, if I'm not mistaken, not mistaken, I don't want to say this wrong, but if I remember correctly, when you're at equinox, it's 2 minutes from the beginning of the ball to the end of the ball. If I'm not mistaken, near the equator, it's much shorter. So when I grew up in America, if I'm not mistaken, it's 2 minutes between the beginning of the ball and the end of the ball at the equinox. So that's a minute. I mean, if that's true, what I said is true, which I don't recall if it's exactly true. So you have to knock off or add a minute to the shkia or zricha of the secular calendar to have it. What? Half of? Yeah, okay, fine. I don't know. Lev, you could probably check that out, right? What it is exactly. What? The whole ball is 4 minutes? Screw that. I've timed it more or less than that. At what time? When is that saying? You read that just now someplace? That could be in America. That's the thing. This has to do with the angle. This is not going to get a science class on the angles. No, it makes a very big difference. Just like the amount of time, every time I go to America, I wonder why they're so slow. From the time the sun sets until it becomes dark, it takes forever. It takes forever, so they get with it, It just that has to do with the angle, how far you're away from the direct rays of the sun. Anyways, so when Alois Shachar really is when the day starts. When Taka, when Shah mixes anything before Alois Shachar doesn't count. Even if you heard enough of it here, that was the daytime, is Rabbi Siman Tafkuf Zayin, what halacha? It says in Mishnah Berurah. It says Yom Trua Yelachem. It says the day of blowing. And if you went into Ben Hashmoshes, you should count without a bracha. Now that's very, very interesting, right? Why is that interesting? Why is that interesting? Yeah, you didn't stop beforehand. What's interesting about it? I'll just share with you an interesting nikuda. People assume that there's alois zricha, shkia tzeis. People assume that those are mirror ideas. Just one is on the way in, one's on the way out. What did we just say? If a person has to blow after alois, could he make a bracha? So, Bein Hashmoshes, what should be the halacha? Okay, so we're not going to get involved in that. Yatsa, the minadim mishalavur hashachar yemamu l'chol advar. Elo l'fishen hakol b'kiyim. Zinu da'asi l'akdume. People can do it too early. Hitzchach ha'chamuchalim l'chatchilo l'yamtim ha'leit yom baruhu. When it's late, it's yom baruh for everybody. From when you have just one a peak over the horizon. Miu calls them hikir din Torah. Now this is very important what we're about to say right now. Somebody asked me this question, I think it was last week, about when should you blow shofar this year that I can't even figure out what to say at the end of the sentence. I'm not really sure. I know, but this year when we don't know when it's going to be, so when should you blow shofar? So I would say when you have a chance. I can't really say more than that because I don't know what it's going to be. So when is the most opportune time? When is the lechatchila time to blow shofar? Normally, the most opportune time, we say Zrizim Akim in the mitzvahs. We don't say that by Kiyah Shofar. And we're going to see why. They said it should be done by Musaf, but over the Gemara time, why is that it's done by Musaf? There was a gzera that they shouldn't blow a shofar. The other man called Shei Shois, and the Gem waited around to make sure that they didn't blow shofar until Shachris time was over, and then they gave up. They said the Jews they're not going to blow shofar. So as soon as the cat went away, the mice came out to play. As soon as they left, so then the Jews came and blew the shofar. So the Chen, we really cover what's up. Tamzanira, the Northern Call you saw, we most Kadumim Gambit Kiss in the Yushov, Shaloi Lias Min Azrizim Agim with Kov Kiyasayov. We don't do anything with Kiyasayov. We don't blow any shofar until that time. Are you yaitz if you blow beforehand? 100%. But there's a takana that we only do it later on. This is a fascinating thing which we learn right now. He should wait to daven until after Shalosh Hours. In order that he should do it at the same time that the tzibur is doing the tkiyas. Anybody can explain that? What's bothering me? Yehuda, what's bothering me?
What's the different times, you know?
I not enough information. I don't know if I agree or disagree.
The davening should be the same time as the tzibur because
Oh, right. So what's the answer? So, but there's two different ways that we could answer that question. One is that you could say that it's also like a tefillah. Okay, that's one answer. And there's another answer that it's not like a tzibur. If a person does something, b'shasha tzibur is doing it, So you're also a nitfa l'tzivah. There's two different answers to explain that. Yeah, so that idea. But what I find amusing is I don't.
Shalosh and Sheshos.
Shalosh is after Shachris. The Chatchila part for Shachris.
Because it says that the guy would wait till Sheshos.
That's because that was the end of when people would end up davening Shachris. But that's not the real time when you're supposed to be finished. Now, how did it come to 3 hours and not 4 hours? Right? I'm not exactly sure, but I have a different question, which bothers me a little bit more. 1 second, we'll get to you, Shofar. And that is, why don't you just go and follow Lev's email and see what time they're blowing Shul and Shofar. They're blowing Shofar and Shul. Excuse me. Right? No, it's there's like a presumption over here that there's a Shazmanius time to blow Shofar, and that's dependent on the tzibur. Why are we making that kind of a connection? We should say, go and check out what's going on in your tzibur. Read your news bulletin to find out. Yeah, what do you want to ask, Mr. Phil?
Those people that daven with nates, they have to wait?
No, I don't think so. But I will say that no, I don't think so. But they're definitely not in the beginning. They don't. It takes at least from when you start shots. They're probably close to 2.5 hours, I would imagine. Not really sure exactly what time, but it's quite late. I'm not sure if they're up to 3 hours. But anyways, this is an interesting idea. Okay, let's go right there.
Why did you keep the honor after the circumstances that caused it to totally change? I mean, in the beginning, wasn't it that this was the time that the mitzvah was to go Shofar?
I can't answer the question. It is discussed. I know the Mefarshim on the page in Rosh Hashanah on this they discussed that why they didn't put it back in. I don't recall the answer. All right. I just read a Sharitzian over here, which is fascinating. It sheds a little bit light on what you said. I hear Shelter's Parsha says Abracha, Varama Savach Shaifa Bazarua. But if he's at near Shein Makam Lahad, the mover by Sharitu, but Shemeza Gedol, Shenago Lias Minas Rizim. But Kiyashafi, you should do it early, Minas Rizim. Ryan Sham. If he is, he must appear Sharitu Zel Shiner. They could only be a time shofar in hidden places. When people dispersed, the Kiyas Yusha should also be done later on. So even though you're not being yaitza with those Kiyas, but they too should be done at the time when people are already not around, later on in the day. Okay. Now, I would like to read this Bir Halacha because it's important just to realize this idea which I mentioned, that it's not clear when Halacha Shachar is. I know Siman Nun Ches, the Bir Halacha, the Das Agrov Oid Eitz Achroidim, the Amud HaShachar Nitra Nishayor Pnei HaMizrach V'loi Koidem. Amud HaShachar is when the eastern part of the sky is already lit up. The Ra'il Shitasom, Madisa B'Tayris, Amos Yachon Shreisa, Ashmel Amud HaShachar, the Rebbe. With the Sefta Perikal Yishalmi Alocha Isa, Rebbe Achi Pnei Mizrach. Rebbe says in the Sefta, when it's Pnei Mizrach, so if you put Rebbe and Rebbe together, so you have that it's Pnei Mizrach. That means that it's already, the eastern wall of the sky is already light. That's way after when most of us consider Alois. Shmamina decharu. Omnom, however, the Sukkah, Rashi Masra, Tarti Mashmat, the trades meaning in Rova, Alois Shachar, who kaidem. It's before Har Pnei Mizrach, which is the way we hold most places. Give Mashma, with a Psikale Dover, Zev Ayin Shavot Ion, when is When is Aloy Shach? Okay. Now, Shama Teisha Kiyos, the Teisha Shois Bayom Yotza. If a person heard, this halacha is relevant in Sukkah also. We have certain mitzvahs that have different pieces to them. In order to kind the mitzvah, you have to do a variety of different things. In other words, you have to take your lulav, your esrog, your das, and rosh, you have to take all of them. Do I have to take them all at one time? So, Mitzvah we'll learn Hilchos Dalaminim, we'll learn about that. But the answer is, they definitely don't have to take it at the same time, but with how much of a hefsek can be afforded and it's still okay, that we're not discussing there, we're going to discuss it here. What about by Tkiyah Shofar? If I heard it sporadically throughout the day, is one Yotza hearing Tkiyah Shofar in such a fashion. So Shama Teshet Tkiyah B'Tesha Shows B'Yom over 9 hours in a day, Yotza. Afilo Hemi Tesha B'Nei Adam. Even if you heard it from 9 different people, you say true, he says Tkiyah. Yesh Adam Davka Shelo Hifsik B'Neihem B'Kol Shofar She'eno Roisa Abava. As long as you didn't have a incorrect, once you're in the middle of the shvarims, you didn't have a trua in the middle to break it up. Because when you do that, so it negates what was done beforehand. No. You asked the question based on an assumption that I'm not sure that the assumption that you have is correct. I'm going to attack you to try to bring something. A person did Bedikas Chametz. I did one room at 10 o'clock, and then I went to sleep, then another room at 11 o'clock, then I went to sleep, then another room at 12 o'clock. Am I here to Bedikas Chametz? What?
You have to make a bracha between each of those bedikos. Is not the sleeping a hefsek?
Both of you did not answer the question that I asked. You answered the question I didn't ask. You're very Jewish. That's wonderful. But now I'd like you to answer the question I asked. I said, are you Yotza B'dikas Chametz?
Yes.
Yes. Because you checked your whole house. So you shouldn't do that because you could lose the bracha. I didn't ask what I asked you.
Sometimes you lose the mitzvah, though. Sometimes you lose the beginning.
Oh, so I understand. But first, before we get to the question over here was, what about Hesach Hadas? So I'm going to answer that question like a Jew. What about Hesach Hadas?
It should interrupt and you should have to start again.
So now, in order to ask that question, that means that you understood that there has to be a unit of hearing all the tkiyas together. So then the Hesach Hadas could be a problem. Well, if I lived in the world of just, and I want it clear, I live in the world of just the rices where there is no brachas on mitzvahs, would you have asked your question? No. He would have.
I would have, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, fine. So, but now, what do you need there to be a Hesach Hadas on, or do you need to have that you don't have a Hefsek Beinayim?
As far as I'm concerned, either one will do. You'll have to explain both.
But 1 second. But you already came to my side. We're saying that there are two different things. There's a Hefsek, and there's Hesach Hadas.
Of course.
Okay. I don't know. To me, it's not so. Of course, are those two totally different kinds of things, or not? So let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. But I'm happy that we're all here. At least that we're all learning this halacha. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Teshet kiyos. Nokal lisha the Gemara. Kifi ikar adin devi'inon rak tesha koilos ta'ayru tisha tkiya trua tkiya shalosh pavim. The Raisa dikadin you only need 9. V'ladidan b'shmoya shalosh sidorim tesha shos. Come on, it means you have to hear 3. Tkiya, shvarim, tkiya, trua, tkiya, shvarim, trua, tkiya 3 times. So that's what that. Yatza b'diavad in Kiven Lotzes, if you had a mind to be Yotze. Listen to the words of the Mishnah Berurah. I know you people are not going to be happy. Va'afilo isiach da'itoi. Why? Va'afilo isiach da'itoi. V'hifsik v'dima b'tayim. Even if he goes Masiach Das and he's Mafsik Mafsik with speaking. Kosovo call Kosovo Bagan. Rob the Kosa B'Shah B'Neim Shaloi Machmas Oynes. Ha B'Shah B'Oynes. In Shah Afilo Rakadei Ligras Kol HaSeder Yachzel Rosh HaSeder. Seder Fish Bash Posik Ma B'Simin Savachay. Lion Shah. Well, you talk Lachzel Rochi Agavna, Ayin, etc. over there. But the simple halacha over here is that this is like B'dikas Chametz. Okay, I'm just explaining the V'davka Shaloi Hifsik with a coal that breaks it up. Davka Shaloi Hifsik Svirlu de Zegara Me'asach Hadas Hasicha. Having a puzzle of coal in the middle that very well said. You need to have a tkiyah. Then you messed up the seder. Even if you weren't the one who made that other call, you messed it up. Whatever you heard before and you wasn't bottle. I want to tell you something. I have a problem that I lived with, and it gives me great distress. And every year before it's kids, I'm always worried about it. Baruch Hashem, here I don't really have the problem so much. I used to daven in a neighborhood that there were a few shuls in a very close proximity. And what would happen is that they would all blow shofar at the same time. So what happens is you're blowing your seder, and now the shul next door, they start, and they have a different seder. So you're right now in between your tkiyas, and then you hear from the other shul, now you messed up. So there's other ways how to take care of that problem. Here's what? Yeah, that's right. So that doesn't help if you're the over shul to make sure for everybody else is, you can't have, right? But these are issues that could be issues. A person has to be aware. Okay. So the reason why I'm saying it is because this year, unfortunately, there may be very many people that are going to be Yotze Tia Shofar at home, and they're going to be hearing something else. All right. That's so we did that already. Bottom line, make sure that when you're blowing the shofar, that's the only thing going on at that time. That's now there's
I davened 1 year at the Kotel, and it was a major issue there.
So how did they resolve that issue?
The minyan I was at, they tried really hard. They tried to get gaps here and there and other people blowing. So sometimes we had to wait a few minutes until we could continue with the series.
They did not overcome the issue. They dealt with it.
They dealt with it, yes.
But there's no, they can't, but it's a problem. Yeah. Bottom line, it's a problem. Okay, now I'm going to learn a Bir Halacha, which to me is very inspiring. I don't have a better word to use than that. I will preface this Bir Halacha with a story that happened to me when I was a Bocher. And I've thought about this story many, many times, and I'm always left wondering. I was a Bocher, And in my dira, there was an opportunity to do Shaluach HaKan. Now, for some reason, which today I wouldn't do what I did then, I decided I was going to be Mechabed Mar Shiva to do the mitzvah of Shaluach HaKan. Today I wouldn't do that. I would do it myself, because if I found $1 million in my deer, I would not be Mechabed to give it to Mar Shiva. So why should I give him a mitzvah? Right? No, there's much to discuss on that issue by itself, but lo mishaneh. I can't say it's a bad sentiment that you want to be Mechabed Mar Shiva to do a mitzvah, but lo mishaneh. And I told him about it, and he said, fine, he's going to come, he's come to do it. He took one look at the Khan and where it was, and he said, you can do it. And he left. And what happened? This Khan was on the windowsill of the bathroom. And he said, I don't want to do a mitzvah in the bathroom. So I said, take it easy. So I said to him, I said, I agree with your sentiment, but that's when you have a choice to do it elsewhere. If it's there or nowhere, so then you should do it. So he says, you're Zaycha, you can do the mitzvah. And he left, that was the end. Okay. Now we'll see the Bir Halacha. And we'll see where we come out from this Bir Halacha. I'm actually concerned with the Mishnah the Indian and Hifsik Machmas Einis. The Kashal is Yishmael Magen Avram. Shaloi Hichmer Hesik Machmas Einis Einis Hu Beguf Hadover. You have some Einis in the mitzvah itself. You go and Shahaya other way Machmas Guf Naki or Shahaya the Makom Shahaya Naki. The place wasn't Naki to do the people time the mitzvah. In Ken Lechura Lo Shaykh Zeh Rak B'Tfila or Birchas Hamazon B'Halal Megillah. All kinds of tefillas, I don't have a better word to use. Hallel, Birchas Hamazon, tefillah, all these, which you say the Shem Hashem, which carries with it a host of halachas. So that oinus I understand. Tekiyas is only a Maisa Mitzvah. כשגופו אינו נקי, או במקום שאינו נקי. האם אוסר ללבוש טלית שיער בקמפוס כשגופו במקום אינו נקי? Now, I would just stop here and tell you, my Rosh Hashiva should be well. When he goes to the bathroom, he takes his tzitzis off before he goes in. So he's Oiska Halt Niyid, right? I don't know why he takes off his tzitzis, but he always takes them off. He wears his tzitzis on top of the shirt, and before he goes into the bathroom, he always takes them off. V'loi matzino came b'shum makom. It's here. What's the problem with Harry Tekiyah Shofar in the bathroom? Basically, that's what we just asked. Person started to blow. And all of a sudden he had a leak of urine. He stops until the leak finishes. He goes back to the beginning of that seder and he continues. And let's say he blew while he was having this accident. Or he found there was tzoya in the place that he blew. Yotza, you're yotza. But he said you shouldn't do it. And could be sometimes you should do it again. So very strange, a very undefinitive halacha. Are you allowed to do a mitzvah without in a place where it's not noki or a goof not noki or not? It says you yaitza and do it again. I cannot hear a word you said. One more time. What's the difference? So what are you going to get him with? No, what is it? What did he do wrong? Okay, so this is an issue. And if he did something wrong, so then he's not yaitza. Right? This is like a quasi kind of we're not happy with you. What kind of deal is that? right? Okay. Ve'efsher atamhu kivon dekaimon letzach kavana lotzes yedei mitzvah shesivona Hashem yisbarach. Person has to have kavana to do a mitzvah daraisa. Ze gufa gam kechoshev kedivrei Torah. This is a colossal chiddush. That having mechavan to do a mitzvah is divrei Torah. V'lo gora mi here with divrei Torah, but gam yesh leva b'pshitus the b'shasha v'kai mitzvah b'fal hu avoda. This is a chassidus word, right? Being a kai mitzvah is avoda. You have to put on your gartel. What's the mitzvah avoda? Ve'ein masas avoda Hashem b'derech b'zoyin. And it's lacking in servitude if you do it in a way that's disgraceful. Go b'chal bizui mitzvah. It's a bizui mitzvah. V'gedoyla mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah. Also, the tzachtzech shofar shel Rosh Hashanah b'meraglayim. You cannot polish the shofar with meraglayim. Meraglayim seems it had some kind of a shiny, thing that'll make it shiny. You can't do that. Mipnei hakavod. V'hurak hechsher mitzvah. Kol shekei mitzvah atzmoi. That you shouldn't do it in a way that it is disgraceful for the mitzvah.
So he asked the kasha that there's no problem, and the answer is we'll find one anyway.
That's a very unfair. What do you mean by we'll find one anyway? Did we find the problem? We didn't.
So then,
Did the Mishabura answer his question or not?
he answered his question, but then so what was the kasha?
Let's go. I'm going to work my way backwards. Okay. He asked the question that l'chayra there's no isser over here at all, and his answer was that there's an isser mitzad acher. Ein achanami, there's nothing to say that you're not yotze the mitzvah, but since you did the mitzvah derech b'zoyin, it's not preferred, and we'd rather you do it again. Right? So now, let's go back. What was the Mishnah Berurah's original question? His original question was that the only time that we said machmas oynes is when it's something that has to do with something intrinsic in the mitzvah. This answer that we gave just now, is this in the mitzvah or is it external to the mitzvah? You understand the question that I'm asking? You understand? The Mishnah Berurah said, machmas oynes, it has to be something like a guf and a noki, etc., which inhibits the person from being able to mekayim the mitzvah. So we came up with a bizui mitzvah answer. Does it answer the question? So what kind of answer is that? Kind of good one.
The
Well,
kavana.
I don't like your answer because I like it to be a good one. All right?
But the kavana would be more of a gufa.
No, I don't think so. There, the pshat is that you're being over a side issue. It's a side issue.
If mitzvah srichas kavana, so then it's not a side issue. That's part of the mitzvah.
No, you had kavanah. You had kavanah. You do what you're supposed to.
But he's saying that, but the kavana is a Torah problem.
Right, it's a side issue. So I'm forced on this question to disagree with Dr. Cohen and say it's a good answer. And I'm going to try to explain why it's a good answer. All of these things are not external. External means that the fact that you're involved in the mitzvah demands, and not something totally external. Even though it's not imperative for the pass-fail of the mitzvah, but it's mitzvah related, it's not called something external. It has to be honest in being mekayim the mitzvah. And being mekayim the mitzvah demands a certain kind of behavior, even if, and I'm adding this in, I think that it's implicit in what was said over here, it's only a lechatchila kind of a thing, that's enough. That's called in the mitzvah. Because over here, the point over here is that it has to be an onus that's mitzvah related. It doesn't have to be in the pass-fail department. Yeah, you got the answer? I think that's the answer to this question. All right.
What would be the game? Suppose in America, the rat was asked by the local Reform temple to come and blow the shofar there because the local shofar blower, the usual shofar blower, was just given birth.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I might have a side to say,
I'm going to interrupt your question, and I'm going to quote a book. There was a book called The Sanctity of the Synagogue, which was written in the 1950s, and that was about 3 different communities in America, one in New Orleans, one in Michigan, and one, I can't remember where the third place was, where the people moved out of the old people were religious and the young people were religious, and they wanted to take down the mechitza, and the old people took them to court, and there was 3 court cases in America whether an Orthodox shul is allowed to not have a mechitza. And there were tshuvas written by different people on the subject. There was a tshuva written by Rabbi Soloveitchik. Rabbi Soloveitchik writes in his tshuva that if one were to stand outside a shul that has no mechitza and hear Tkiyah Shofar from outside, he's not Yotze. Just thought you found that as an amazing thing. Now, what are you asking if so it's asked by the Reform Temple to go and blow shofar? Yeah. So what was the question?
I mean, would you first of all be able to fulfill the mitzvah? Is that something called external to the mitzvah? Or because it's not an environment where you can do the mitzvah, like in blowing shofar in the bathroom, is it the same thing? Or how would you affect the tie-in of the mitzvah? That's what I'm trying to ask. I'm trying to understand the latter of
I'm not sure I understand your question 100%. I mean, just using that as an example, that these are people that are standing Chil Hashem, right? The Apikorsim, right? So you want to know if you could blow a shofar, if you would be a Reform convention and you happen to be stuck on the train in the same booth as them. If you want to know if you could blow a shofar over there, the answer is of course you could. If you want to know if you're allowed to go into their shul, so the question is, you go to the shul altogether.
So the shofar blower would be
No, but there that's a question, are you being machzik yedei avera? There's many other questions which are involved. But the fact that what they're doing is an isser, I don't know if it's chal on the place. No, it's your involvement in their service. It wasn't in the Reform shul. They were, excuse me for speaking about, they were in Ezrat Yisrael, is that what it's called? The place by the place. So, can I blow a shofar for them there? Should I blow a shofar for them all together? My opinion, you should blow a shofar for them all together.
Would you think that it would be okay?
I don't think that's what I just said.
No, but I'm surprised you even, I didn't even begin to understand the thought that that could be okay.
No, that's a halachic question. If somebody would stand there and blow the shofar, are they yotze?
I got stuck on Rabbi Soloveitchik standing outside.
Okay.
Why would
Well,
you
you're
think it's
outside.
okay? But there's a problem with the Ma'aseh Mitzvah itself.
So that's his question. Is that called a problem to Ma'aseh Mitzvah if the people that you are blowing for are a to'eva?
I don't understand the question, but continue, please.
Okay. All right. We're going to stop. I'm going to stop over here before I get into more trouble.